What if your mind didn't have to grow old with your body? What if forgetting names, misplacing your keys, or losing your train of thought wasn't just normal aging? And what if, hidden in ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science, there were real answers within your reach? Let me tell you a story, not just any story, but one that might feel surprisingly familiar. Forgetfulness doesn't always arrive like a thunderstorm. Often it sneaks in like a soft breeze. At first, it's barely noticeable. A name lost at the tip of your tongue, a room entered and suddenly forgotten why. But what if I told you that memory loss isn't a life sentence? It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be rewired, retrained, and even reversed. The secret? It lies at the crossroads of ancient Buddhist mindfulness and modern neuroscience. These two worlds, though centuries apart, have revealed something extraordinary. Your brain, your clarity, your joy, they are all still within your grasp. Today, we'll follow the remarkable journey of Linda Miller, a strong, smart, fiercely independent woman. For years, she prided herself on her quick thinking and sharp memory. Numbers, birthdays, even crossword puzzles over coffee. These were part of her identity. But slowly, quietly, something began to shift. At first, Linda barely noticed. She'd walk into the kitchen and pause. What did I come here for? Or set down her phone, then spend minutes searching for it. We've all done it, haven't we? So she brushed it off, until one day, she couldn't anymore. It was a crisp autumn afternoon. Golden leaves danced in the breeze as Linda headed to the grocery store, just like she had hundreds, maybe thousands of times before. She walked through the familiar doors, greeted by the comforting scent of freshly baked bread and the cool rush of air conditioning. She reached for a cart, just like always, but as she pushed it forward, something felt wrong. Her mind, once so quick and certain, suddenly stalled. Why was she here? What did she need? What aisle was she even going to? It wasn't just a forgotten item. It was a wake-up call. And that moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in Linda's life, one that didn't lead deeper into decline, but toward renewal. A journey of reclaiming her mind through 6 powerful habits grounded in mindfulness, movement, nutrition, and more. Curious what those habits are? You'll soon discover them, each one simple, yet deeply transformative. Up next, let's step into the turning point of Linda's story, where fear turned into action and forgetfulness gave way to clarity. That moment in the grocery store lingered in Linda's heart like a shadow that wouldn't lift. What began as a simple errand had turned into a terrifying reminder that something deeper was slipping away. She froze. Her heart pounded violently, as if trying to wake her up from a dream. Her breath hitched in her throat. Around her, the store hummed with ordinary life. Bright fluorescent lights, towering shelves, the distant beeping of the checkout, and strangers brushing past with carts full of groceries. But Linda stood still, eyes darting across faces and aisles, gripped by one chilling realization. She had no idea why she was there. Her mind scrambled. Milk? Eggs? Bread? What had she come for? A wave of panic surged through her chest, powerful and suffocating. She tightened her grip on the cart, her knuckles turning pale with pressure. The more she tried to remember, the more everything blurred. A fog had wrapped itself around her thoughts, thick and unrelenting. She turned down an aisle, then another, desperately hoping that a label, a familiar item, something would spark a memory. But nothing came. Seconds slipped into minutes. Or was it the other way around? Time had lost all shape. Tears welled up in her eyes, hot and sharp. But she wouldn't cry. Not here, not in front of strangers. She whispered to herself under her breath, as if trying to anchor her mind. Then, taking in a trembling breath, she let go of the cart and walked out. Her hands fumbled inside her bag for her car keys, shaking with confusion and shame. When she finally sank into the driver's seat, she felt completely drained, like she'd run a race she hadn't trained for. That night, Linda sat quietly in her armchair, wrapped in the hush of the evening. Outside the window, the wind stirred the leaves, but inside, her mind was louder than ever. She stared blankly as the scene from earlier played again and again in her head. It wasn't just the grocery store. She remembered the other moments too, searching for her glasses that were on her head, forgetting a dear friend's name, or blanking out mid-sentence. This wasn't a one-time slip. This wasn't just stress. Something was happening, something real. And for the first time, fear crept into her thoughts. What if this is only the beginning? What if it gets worse? What if one day I forget someone I love? A chill ran down her spine. But in that same silence, a seed of resolve quietly planted itself. She had a choice: surrender to fear or fight for her clarity. As the soft golden light of her lamp flickered across the room, casting gentle shadows on the walls, Linda made her decision. She would not go quietly. She would not lose herself without a fight. And so began her journey, a path shaped by two guiding forces: the modern science of brain health and the timeless spiritual practices of Buddhist wisdom. Habit 1. Grounding. Walking barefoot on the earth. Her first step, quite literally, was to connect her body to the ground beneath her feet. Linda began walking barefoot outside. It was a small act, but surprisingly profound. In Buddhist tradition, this practice is called earthing or grounding. It's more than simply walking barefoot. It's a way of returning to presence, of letting the earth calm the restless mind and bring stillness back to the soul. At first, Linda felt awkward. The dewy morning grass tickled her skin. Pebbles pricked the soles of her feet. The cool soil sent tingles up her spine. Every step felt raw, almost primitive, as if she was stepping into a world that had been forgotten. But that world welcomed her, a world where humans and nature moved in quiet harmony, where silence wasn't empty. It was full of listening. Day by day, as dawn painted the horizon in gold, Linda walked, slowly, purposefully, feeling every texture beneath her toes, breathing with the rhythm of the earth. And this was just the beginning. Up next, what happened when Linda combined this grounding with the rhythm of mindful movement, a practice that began to awaken more than just her body? As Linda continued her barefoot walks at dawn, something inside her began to shift. The earth beneath her feet, once cold and unfamiliar, now became a quiet guide back to herself. She stepped outside with intention. Each movement was slow, each step deliberate. There was no rush, only presence. The cool earth greeted the soles of her feet, and she welcomed it without resistance. At first, her feet, so used to the comfort of shoes and the hardness of pavement, winced with each contact. Every pebble, every twig seemed to shout. But over time, discomfort gave way to sensitivity, and sensitivity gave way to awareness. A dialogue began to form between her body and the natural world. She could feel it, the gentle tickle of morning dew, the rough grain of soil warmed by the rising sun, the tiny shifts in texture from grass to gravel. These sensations, once overlooked, became part of her meditation. And as she tuned into her body and breath, the noise in her mind began to settle. The anxious thoughts that once raced endlessly through her brain began to slow, like leaves drifting down a quiet stream. Her senses sharpened. She started to see again, really see, the way the leaves danced in the morning breeze, the slow bloom of the sky, transitioning from a deep blue to a soft golden pink, the patient melodic song of birds welcoming a new day. For the first time in years, Linda wasn't lost in her thoughts. She was here, fully present. Modern science echoes what Buddhist teachings have long embraced. Grounding, this ancient practice of touching the earth with bare skin, has real, measurable effects on the body and brain. Studies show that it reduces inflammation, improves blood flow, and eases oxidative stress, all crucial elements for protecting brain function and slowing cognitive aging. When we walk barefoot, negative electrons from the earth flow into our bodies, helping to neutralize free radicals, those damaging particles that quietly speed up the aging process and affect memory and mood. Even cortisol levels, the body's stress hormone, drop. As a result, we sleep better, feel calmer, and think more clearly. But beyond biology, Buddhist monks have long understood the deeper meaning of walking with bare feet. The Buddha himself wandered barefoot for years, believing the earth to be a sacred teacher, one that speaks not in words but in silence. To walk in silence, to feel the earth's steady rhythm, is to be reminded of impermanence, of presence, of the interconnectedness of all life. One particularly misty morning, as Linda stood quietly in her backyard, the soft sunlight kissed her skin. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and whispered words she hadn't spoken in a long time. I am here. I am present. I am alive. A slow smile rose on her lips. Something opened in her chest, an emotion she couldn't quite name. Peace? Joy? Maybe both. For the first time in what felt like forever, her mind felt truly awake. And so, what began as a daily habit became a sacred ritual, a return to herself, to the earth, to this moment. Each footstep was no longer ordinary, it was a quiet act of healing. And in those steps she realized clarity and peace had never been gone. They were always there, waiting for her to come back. Habit 2, the golden tonic, nourishing the mind through mindful eating. If the earth grounded her, food would now begin to awaken her from within. In Buddhism, food isn't simply energy, it's medicine. You are what you eat, the Buddha taught. And today, neuroscientists agree. Every bite, every sip has the power to shape the brain, either to nourish it or to slowly wear it down. For Linda, this truth hit home during one of her most desperate moments. A visit to a holistic doctor changed everything. While grounding brought Linda back to the earth beneath her feet, her next step in healing would begin in the warmth of her own kitchen, with a simple, ancient drink that had nourished minds for centuries. During a visit to a holistic doctor, Linda was introduced to something she had never considered: a golden tonic, long used in Eastern medicine to reduce inflammation, calm the body, and awaken the brain. It sounded more like folklore than science. Could a drink, just a blend of ingredients, really sharpen the mind? The doctor spoke gently, but with conviction. In both Ayurvedic and Buddhist traditions, food was never seen as just fuel. It was a sacred offering, a form of respect for the body, a ritual of mindfulness. Still, Linda was unsure. A drink that helped the mind focus, that chased away forgetfulness and mental fog, it sounded almost too simple to be true. But something about the doctor's words stayed with her. Then he handed her the cup. It was warm to the touch, glowing in a deep amber hue, with soft curls of steam rising into the air. The scent was earthy, spicy, comforting. She lifted the cup and took a slow, cautious sip. The heat moved through her like a soft flame, not burning, but calming. It felt like being gently held from within. Her body relaxed, her breath slowed. Inside that golden liquid were ingredients long known not just for flavor, but for power. Turmeric, the golden spice of India, had been used by monks for thousands of years. Its anti-inflammatory properties were said to protect the brain from aging and decline. Coconut oil, rich in medium-chain triglycerides, MCTs, offered the brain clean, steady energy, helping with focus and mental endurance. Black pepper, though simple, played a key role. It activated turmeric's curcumin, increasing its absorption in the body by 2,000%. Raw cacao, once sacred among ancient cultures, improved blood flow to the brain, enhancing creativity and mood. Its theobromine and flavonoids were natural brain boosters, and cinnamon, warm and grounding, helped keep blood sugar stable, so her energy and focus didn't crash unexpectedly. Inspired by this ancient blend, Linda began preparing the golden tonic every morning. She warmed a small pot of plant-based milk, stirred in a teaspoon of turmeric, a dash of cinnamon, a spoonful of coconut oil, a pinch of black pepper, and just a touch of cacao. But it wasn't just a drink. It became a ritual. She would breathe in its aroma, and before the first sip, whisper a quiet intention. May this nourish my body and my mind. May I stay sharp, aware, and at peace. At first, there weren't any dramatic changes. Some days her mind still felt foggy. Some names still slipped away. But over time, something gentle began to shift. She felt more present, not just in her routines, but in her relationships. Conversations flowed more easily. Her thoughts, once scattered like autumn leaves in the wind, began to settle and take shape. And then, one day, while chatting with her granddaughter Emily, she realized she hadn't lost her keys all week. No missed appointments, no awkward pauses. It wasn't a miracle, but to Linda, it was monumental. She smiled softly, sipping her golden tonic, feeling not just its warmth, but the deeper warmth of confidence returning. The sense that she was reclaiming something precious, herself. And the best part, science is now beginning to confirm what Buddhist practitioners have quietly known for generations. Up next, a movement of the body becomes a movement of the mind. Discover how mindful motion helped Linda spark clarity, energy, and joy. As Linda continued her morning ritual with the golden tonic, something deeper was taking root, not just in her body, but in her mind. It wasn't a miracle, but the result of a daily decision to nourish herself with intention and presence. The more she committed to her routine, the clearer the connection became. The gut and the brain, as modern science now tells us, are profoundly intertwined. What we eat doesn't just shape our energy, it shapes how we think, how we feel, how we remember. Linda's progress wasn't sudden. There were no magical turnarounds or overnight transformations. What she experienced was steady, gentle, real. Day by day, her fog lifted not from force, but from care. Each choice she made, from her grounding walks to the golden tonic, was a form of self-respect, a way of saying, I'm still here, I still matter. Weeks turned into months. The tonic remained a sacred part of her mornings. But more than a drink, it became a daily vow. a symbol of her resilience. Each sip wasn't just about turmeric or cacao, it was about intention, a choice to be present, a choice to heal, a choice to believe that renewal was not just possible, but already happening. And then one day, a surprising suggestion from her doctor opened a new door. Habit 3. Music, the soundtrack of memory. It was during a routine appointment when the doctor, after listening patiently to Linda's updates, asked a simple question. Have you tried listening to music from your youth? The question caught her off guard. Music. She hadn't thought about it, not seriously, not in years. Sure, she played the radio now and then, but when was the last time she truly listened? Not just letting it play in the background, but really being with the music. The thought stayed with her long after she left the clinic. Could something as simple as a song really unlock lost memories? Could it reach places in her mind she thought were closed forever? That afternoon, curiosity turned into action. Linda sat by her window, a steaming cup of tea nestled between her hands. The golden light of the afternoon sun spilled across the wooden floor, giving the room a calm, timeless glow. She took a slow breath and walked over to the corner where her old record player had been gathering dust. She hesitated, then opened the lid. The machine still worked. Carefully, she placed a vinyl record on the turntable, one she hadn't touched in decades. Then, with a deep breath, she lowered the needle. A soft crackle echoed through the speakers. Then music. Familiar, nostalgic, and instantly transporting. A melody filled the room. One she used to hum absent-mindedly while brushing her hair before school. One that played on the radio during hot summer evenings, when she and her friends sat barefoot on the porch, dreaming about the lives they would one day live. And suddenly, time folded. She closed her eyes and was 17 again, standing outside her childhood home, the scent of jasmine in the warm air. She could almost hear her siblings laughing in the backyard, the cicadas humming, the sun setting in that slow, golden way it only does in memory. The moment was vivid, tender, real. For a few minutes, she forgot about her recent struggles. There were no memory gaps, no fog, just being. She wasn't fighting to remember. She was remembering effortlessly. This wasn't coincidence. Buddhist philosophy has long taught that sound is more than vibration. It's medicine for the soul. Monks chant mantras, repeat sacred syllables, and use rhythmic tones to guide the mind inward, awaken memory, and cultivate stillness. Modern neuroscience affirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that music activates multiple areas of the brain, including those tied to memory and emotion. In patients with cognitive decline, even dementia, familiar songs have brought forth long-lost recollections, often accompanied by laughter, tears, or words once thought forgotten. For Linda, this experience opened a door to something she hadn't felt in a long time, a connection to herself, not through effort, but through emotion. Up next, Linda takes her next step, discovering how gentle, intentional movement became a powerful tool for mental clarity and emotional renewal. After rediscovering the power of music, Linda felt a new sense of wholeness. Each song became a bridge, not just to her memories, but to herself, a self that had never truly been lost, only waiting to be heard again. From that moment on, music became a daily companion in her healing journey. But for Linda, it wasn't just about hearing melodies. It was about feeling them. She created a personal playlist, lovingly crafted with songs that once defined the chapters of her life. There was the upbeat tune she and her husband danced to at their wedding, the one that made them laugh and twirl like carefree teenagers. There was the lullaby she used to hum night after night, cradling her children to sleep, and the song that played on the radio as they drove across the country together, windows down, wind in their hair, hearts wide open to the road ahead. Each track wasn't just a memory, it was a doorway, unlocking moments she thought had faded forever. Some mornings she started her day with soft instrumental music while preparing breakfast. The gentle harmonies filled the kitchen like sunlight, guiding her into the morning with a quiet clarity. On days when she needed energy, she'd turn up the lively hits of her youth, swaying to the beat, tapping her fingers on the counter, a smile playing at her lips as joyful memories surfaced without effort. But it wasn't just nostalgia she was chasing, it was healing. On days when her mind felt slow, when thoughts tangled like threads she couldn't unwind, she'd turn to music, not as an escape, but as a balm. Some rhythms softened her nerves like warm water, while others sparked joy so unexpectedly that she'd laugh out loud. Music became her sanctuary, a gentle reminder that no matter how many years passed, the essence of who she was still lived inside her. One evening, something beautiful happened. Linda sat in her favorite armchair, a soft blanket draped over her legs. Her granddaughter Emily nestled beside her. Together, they shared a pair of headphones and listened to an old classic from Linda's teenage years. As the music played, Emily's eyes lit up with curiosity. "What was life like back then, Grandma?" she asked. "What kind of dances did you do? What did your clothes look like? What did you and your friends do for fun?" In that moment, music didn't just stir Linda's memory. It wove two generations together, past and present blended into something alive, something new. As the final notes of the song faded, Linda let out a deep breath. She felt lighter, more herself than she had in years. She understood something deeply now. Memory isn't just about data or details. It's about feeling, about reconnecting with the emotions that make life meaningful. And so, her journey with music continued. Not as a soundtrack to what had been, but as a melody carrying her forward. One note, one heartbeat, one beautiful moment at a time. Habit 4. Movement. Awakening the body to awaken the mind. The Buddha once said, "To keep the body in good health is a duty. Otherwise we shall not be able to keep our mind strong and clear." For Linda, that ancient wisdom began to take on a new and very personal meaning. Her mind still felt heavy at times, wrapped in a haze she couldn't explain. She had always assumed that this slow fading of energy, of sharpness, was just part of getting older. But now she wasn't so sure. What if movement, something so simple, so natural, was the missing key? As it turns out, it was her granddaughter Emily who gently nudged her toward the answer. "Let's go for a little walk, Grandma," Emily said one sunny afternoon, slipping her hand into Linda's with a warmth that made it hard to say no. Linda looked down at her feet, then at the long sidewalk stretching out in front of her. It seemed so far. Her legs felt tired, her body unsteady. Even making it to the end of the driveway felt like a challenge. But then she looked at Emily's bright, hopeful face, and with a deep breath, she took the first step. That first step, taken hand in hand with her granddaughter Emily, became the beginning of something Linda hadn't felt in a long time: momentum. It wasn't just her body that was waking up. It was her entire being. The first few walks were anything but easy. Her joints ached, her legs felt heavy. Every movement seemed to push through an invisible wall. It was as if her body had forgotten what it meant to move freely. But she kept going. Just a few steps more each day. And slowly something began to shift. At first, it was barely noticeable. But day by day, she found herself more in tune with the world around her. She began to notice the soft breeze brushing her cheeks, the gentle rustle of leaves underfoot, the warmth of sunlight streaming through the canopy of trees. Small things, but they began to mean everything. The more Linda moved, the more her body responded. And to her surprise, so did her mind. Each step felt like a gentle invitation back to life. As the days turned into weeks, she started to look forward to her walks. Her posture grew more confident, her breath more rhythmic, her mind more focused. It wasn't just exercise anymore. It was a kind of homecoming. She began recognizing familiar faces in the neighborhood again, faces she hadn't really seen in years. She found herself exchanging smiles, even starting short conversations. And then, one day, it happened. She remembered the name of a woman she hadn't spoken to in over a decade, a name that had once vanished in the fog of forgetfulness, suddenly came back, and with it came a wave of joy, unexpected, empowering. That simple moment felt like reclaiming a part of herself. Today, science finally echoes what Buddhist wisdom has taught for centuries. Studies from institutions like Harvard reveal that movement improves blood flow, boosts neuroplasticity, and even encourages the birth of new neurons, strengthening the very pathways that memory relies on. For Linda, walking became more than a routine. It became a meditation in motion. It was her quiet rebellion against the slow erosion of time. Each walk reminded her, I am still here. I am still capable. I am still me. One morning, as she and Emily walked their usual route, Linda paused. She closed her eyes and took a long, steady breath. The air was fresh. Children's laughter echoed in the distance. The scent of freshly cut grass filled her lungs. And in her hand, she felt the small, warm grip of her granddaughter's. Tears welled up, not from sadness, but from gratitude. These were the moments she thought she might lose. But now she was reclaiming them, one deliberate step at a time. It was never about speed or distance. It was about consistency, about honoring her body's need for movement, just as she had learned to honor her mind's need for stillness. With every walk, Linda wasn't just staying active. She was remembering who she was. Habit 5. Daily challenges, training the mind. Like a muscle 1. Peaceful afternoon, as sunlight poured through the windows and the house stood quiet, Linda's son arrived holding a small, neatly wrapped package in brown paper. "This is for you, Mom," he said warmly, placing it in her hands. She looked at him, curious, then slowly unwrapped it. Inside was a puzzle book. Not just any puzzle book, this one was filled with crossword challenges, brain teasers, riddles, and logic games. At first, Linda hesitated. It had been years since she'd done anything like this. Her days were often predictable. Morning tea, a short walk, a bit of television, the occasional magazine flip. Mental challenges? That felt like a chapter from the past. But then she looked into her son's eyes and saw something. Hope, encouragement, a belief in her, and something inside her stirred. Holding the puzzle book in her hands, Linda felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time, a challenge. It was unfamiliar, maybe even intimidating. But deep down, she wondered, could this be exactly what my mind has been waiting for? That evening, with the house quiet and a warm cup of tea beside her, Linda sat at the dining table and flipped open the book. The first page held a simple crossword puzzle, or at least it looked simple. She stared at the empty grid, pen in hand, but the words refused to come. The clues felt vague. Her mind, which had begun to feel sharper in recent weeks, suddenly stalled. She sighed, a hint of frustration creeping in. "Why is this so difficult?" she muttered under her breath, tapping the pen nervously on the edge of the table. Then she paused. Hadn't she spent years gently encouraging her children and grandchildren to be patient when learning new things? Hadn't she reminded them that mistakes were part of the process? Now it was her turn to practice what she had always preached. She took a deep breath, softened her shoulders, and tried again. Slowly, she began testing words, writing, erasing, adjusting letters. One clue clicked, then another. And then, to her surprise, more began to fall into place. With each correct word, her confidence grew, and frustration began to give way to something else: excitement. The next morning, she found herself reaching for the puzzle book along with her coffee. She sat by the window and dove into a Sudoku, brows furrowed in focused thought. After that came a logic game that made her rethink how she approached problem solving. What had once felt like a chore was quickly becoming a source of joy. The Buddha once compared the mind to a garden. What we cultivate grows. If we allow weeds of apathy and passivity to spread, they will. But if we tend to our minds with curiosity and challenge, they will bloom. Linda had once believed that mental decline with age was simply inevitable. But what if that wasn't the case? What if, like a muscle, the brain just needed regular exercise? That shift in perspective changed everything. She began to see her brain not as a failing organ, but as a living, adaptable part of her, one that could be nurtured, trained, and strengthened. And the science backed her up. Studies have shown that engaging in cognitive challenges, whether puzzles, reading, learning new skills, or even playing strategy games, helps forge new neural connections. This neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, meant that her mind was more resilient than she had ever believed. Encouraged by the momentum, Linda didn't stop at crosswords. She visited the local library and brought home books on topics she'd never explored: astronomy, ancient history, philosophy. Subjects that once felt distant now sparked her curiosity. And then, something bold. She began learning French. Just a few phrases at first. The sounds felt awkward. Her tongue stumbled. The grammar made no sense. But she practiced every day. She repeated the words aloud, quietly at first, then with more confidence. Slowly, the unfamiliar became familiar. Patterns started to emerge. Words stuck. She even found herself dreaming in French. Her brain was waking up, and it was exhilarating. One afternoon at the grocery store, Linda overheard a couple speaking French in the next aisle. Without thinking, she turned and greeted them with a cheerful "Bonjour, comment ça va?" They looked surprised, and then smiled warmly as they replied. And in that small exchange, Linda felt something magical: connection. In a language she had only just begun to study, she had bridged a gap between strangers, not with perfection, but with courage. For the first time in years, she felt the thrill of spontaneous human connection in a completely new way. Back at home, her granddaughter Emily had been watching her with wonder. "Grandma," she asked one afternoon, "do you want to play chess with me?" After surprising even herself with a cheerful bonjour at the grocery store, Linda felt a spark that hadn't been there in years, a sense of fun, of possibility. Her brain was waking up, and now it was ready for a new kind of challenge. That evening, while clearing the dinner dishes, Emily looked up and asked with a playful grin, "Grandma, do you want to play chess with me?" Linda laughed. "I haven't played chess in years. You'll probably beat me in 5 moves." Emily shrugged with a mischievous smile. "Maybe. But what if you win?" And so they set up the board. At first, Linda was hesitant. The rules came back slowly, and she found herself second-guessing each move. Strategy didn't feel natural anymore. She lost quickly, but Emily was gentle, encouraging. Game after game, Linda returned to the board. Each evening became a ritual. Quiet concentration, soft laughter, the occasional aha when a move paid off. And gradually her thinking began to sharpen. She started anticipating Emily's moves, setting traps, planning 2 or 3 steps ahead. Then one night, after weeks of matches, Linda made her final move and won. Emily stared at the board, eyes wide. "Grandma, you actually beat me." Linda's face lit up. A laugh bubbled out of her, warm and triumphant. "I guess I did," she said, a spark of childlike joy rising in her chest. And that victory, small as it might seem, meant the world. Linda's commitment to mental challenges didn't just stay at the chessboard. It started to ripple through every area of her life. Conversations became sharper. She remembered details she once struggled to hold on to. When someone mentioned a familiar recipe, she could recall it from memory, measurements, ingredients, and all. Navigating new places felt easier. Her confidence was returning. What had begun as a simple puzzle book had transformed into something much more. A lifestyle of curiosity, a daily practice of growth, and she wasn't stopping. One quiet evening, as the sky turned soft with twilight and her puzzle book lay closed beside her, Linda looked out the window and reflected. Not so long ago, she had feared her mind was slipping, fading like light at the end of day. But now she saw clearly. The mind doesn't wither with age. It withers with neglect. As long as she continued to challenge herself, to stay curious, to keep learning, she knew one thing for certain. Her mind would remain vibrant. Because every crossword, every chess match, every new phrase in a foreign language, it wasn't just activity, it was a declaration. I am still growing, and when you are still growing, you are still truly living. Habit 6, gratitude and faith, the final, most powerful habit. Even with all her progress, her sharpened focus, her renewed energy, her joyful moments, Linda came to understand one profound truth. None of it would last without the right mindset. She had nourished her body. She had exercised her mind. She had reconnected with the world around her, but deep down she sensed something was still missing. She needed something more, something to anchor her, something steady and quiet that could hold her during moments of uncertainty. Something that could remind her again and again of the beauty tucked inside every day. And so she turned to something simple. Each night, just before sleep, she whispered a short prayer. "Thank you for today. I am here. I am grateful." At first, it felt mechanical, a routine, soft, comforting, but ordinary. But night after night, something began to shift. The more she practiced gratitude, the more she noticed it, woven into the fabric of her days like golden threads. A child's laughter, a hot cup of tea, the hush of early morning light. Small things, quiet things, miracles really. One evening, standing by her window, she watched the sky melt into hues of peach and rose. A familiar sight, sunset. But for the first time in years, she didn't just see it, she felt it. A wave of warmth rushed through her as she whispered, "Thank you." How many sunsets had she witnessed without ever really appreciating them? Now she stood in full presence, heart open, spirit still. And science, as it turns out, confirms what spiritual traditions have long known. Gratitude changes the brain. Regularly practicing gratitude reduces stress, strengthens memory, improves cognitive function, and rewires the mind to be more positive, more resilient, more attuned to joy. Linda wasn't just experiencing a shift in her thoughts. She was experiencing a shift in her being. As Linda embraced gratitude and made it part of her daily life, something remarkable unfolded, not just in her heart, but in her mind. She wasn't just thinking differently, she was changing, rewiring her brain, one thankful moment at a time. Over the weeks, gratitude began to seep into every corner of her life. She found herself pausing to appreciate the quiet warmth of her morning tea, the sound of Emily's laughter echoing down the hallway, the way the autumn leaves spun playfully in the crisp breeze. Her attention had shifted from what she had lost to all that she still had, and that shift changed everything. Gratitude opened the door, but it was faith that carried her through. Though Linda had always seen herself as spiritual, she had drifted from formal practices over the years. Yet as she grew older, she felt a gentle pull, a longing to connect with something greater than herself. Not answers, not doctrine, just trust. A trust that life has rhythm, that there's a wisdom beneath the surface of things. Faith, she came to understand, wasn't about certainty. It was about surrender, about meeting the unknown not with fear, but with an open heart. Linda began meditating each morning, not in perfect silence, but in gentle reflection. Eyes closed, she would breathe deeply, anchoring herself in the present. Sometimes she would remember a phrase from a Buddhist book she had once read, "Let go or be dragged." With each breath, she let go of fear, of doubt, of the illusion that she had to control everything. One Sunday, she attended a small gathering at a local meditation center. Sitting in a circle of quiet seekers, she felt a kind of peace she hadn't known in years. No pressure, no performance, just presence. A sense of belonging, not just with others, but with herself. Wanting to deepen her practice, Linda began keeping a gratitude journal. Each night, before her simple prayer, she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for. Some days, it was light and playful. The neighbor's dog wagging its tail as she walked by. A phone call from an old friend. The comfort of warm socks straight from the dryer. Other days, it was deeper. The quiet strength she felt after solving a challenge. The patience she gave herself after a small mistake. The quiet realization, I am still growing. By the end of the month, flipping through those pages, Linda saw something extraordinary. Her life hadn't suddenly changed. She had simply started to see it. All the beauty had been there. She had just learned how to notice it again. One morning, during a peaceful walk in the park, she paused to watch children laughing and chasing each other through the leaves. Their joy was pure, unburdened, and it hit her. She had once been that child, running barefoot, laughing without hesitation. Now she had found her way back, not through youth, but through gratitude. she stopped beneath a tall oak tree and gently placed her hand on its bark. Rough, weathered, strong. How many seasons had this tree witnessed? How many storms had it endured? And yet, it stood tall, still reaching for the light. Linda closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." By now, gratitude and faith weren't habits. They were part of who she was. She no longer feared the passage of time. She no longer chased after what had faded. Instead, she met each day with presence, with appreciation for the breath in her lungs, the love in her heart, and the lessons carved into every moment. Linda had discovered something profound. Memory fades, youth fades, but gratitude, that stays. That night, she closed her journal gently, smiled, and whispered the words she had come to love. "Thank you for today. I am here. I am grateful." Linda's journey wasn't about chasing youth or resisting time. It was about embracing life, one small, intentional habit at a time. Grounding, mindful eating, music, movement, mental challenges, gratitude. These weren't just wellness tips. They were invitations to come home to herself, to reclaim clarity, presence, and joy. And the best part? This transformation isn't just Linda's. It's available to you too. Your mind is your most precious treasure. It holds your stories, your hopes, your wisdom, and just like a garden, it blooms when you nurture it. So ask yourself, are you ready to begin? Take one step today. Walk barefoot in the grass. Savor your next meal like it's your first. Put on a song from your youth and let it transport you. Move your body. Stretch your mind. And when night falls, whisper a quiet thank you. Because transformation doesn't come all at once. It happens in the small choices, the quiet rituals, the gentle decisions you make, day by day. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which of these 6 habits spoke to you the most? Which one will you begin today? Tell us in the comments below. And if this video touched your heart, help us share this message. Like, share, and subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful content to help you live with clarity, intention, and peace. Until next time, stay present, stay grateful, and keep your mind sharp.